This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Welcome to episode 2 of The Daily Bread. I'm Cindy Harris, and today I'm going to be showing you my recipe for a sweet breakfast bread. Now this bread, you can start it the day before you're going to cook it, and you start by getting some water between 100 and 110 degrees in temperature. That's where the instant read thermometer comes in handy. And we're going to measure 1/4 cup of it out into a small bowl. Then get 3 teaspoons of active dry yeast and place that into the warm water. And then you're just going to give that a little stir with either a small spatula or a spoon to get the yeast starting to dissolve. And then you can just set that aside. Now over at the mixer, we're going to measure out 4 cups of just regular all-purpose flour. I use an unbleached flour, but whatever you have on hand is fine. And then we're going to put 1 tablespoon of kosher salt in with the flour, and then 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. Then with the dough hook on your mixer, set that on a low speed to get those ingredients mixing together. And then we're going to add 1 cup of warm water. And again, the water needs to be between 100 and 110 degrees. I'm going to add that slowly. And then we're going to go ahead and add our dissolved yeast mixture. And again, just go ahead, give it a little stir, and then pop it right in to the mixer with the other ingredients. Now that is all that goes into this bread dough. So now we need to let the mixer do its job. And I'm just going to go ahead. You've noticed I popped it up to a little bit higher speed. I'm just going to let that flour start to mix in with those ingredients, and it's going to start to form a dough. Now it can take up to about 4 or 5 minutes for this dough to come together, but you just let it do its thing. And pretty soon it's just going to get bigger and bigger clumps of dough till pretty soon it's almost a whole ball of dough rolling around in your mixer. Now as that dough hook works, pretty soon, like you can see, there's hardly any loose flour at the bottom. It's becoming this nice firm dough. That's what we're going for. Now once the dough is pretty much into a ball, I'm going to take it off the mixer and I'm going to put a little sprinkle of flour down on my board here. Now this is a pretty tough dough, so you don't have to worry about being too delicate with it. But you'll notice I'm kind of just pulling it together a little bit, and then I'm going to take my rolling pin out and I'm going to roll it out to the size of my board here. Now this board is about 12 by 16 inches, but you basically just want a rectangular size that's about 1/4 of an inch thick, the dough. So you just keep rolling it out and try to roll it out as evenly as you can. It makes it easier to roll up once we get the filling in. Now, once you get it rolled out, and you'll notice I am trying to make sure that I get some nice ends and a real rectangular shape here, then we're going to start filling it with all of these wonderful ingredients. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a jar of Nutella. Now, Nutella is a chocolate hazelnut spread that is mainly found over in the jam section of the grocery store. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the whole jar, and I'm using a little offset spatula, and I am just going to smear that all over the dough. And then I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle on some chopped nuts. Now, I'm using some hazelnuts, but if you don't have hazelnuts, you could certainly use walnuts or pecans. It doesn't really matter. And I'm using about 1/2 cup of chopped nuts. And then I'm going to go ahead and get a banana. and I'm going to go ahead, and sometimes you need between 1 and 2 bananas, but I just go ahead and I slice the banana up, and it goes all over the top of the Nutella and the nuts. And as you're slicing it, you want to make sure that the slices go flat at the end. You don't want them poking up. And now all we have to do is roll this up. So you just start at the long end closest to you, and it's much like a jelly roll where you're just going to start rolling it. You want to roll it as tightly as you can. But like I said, this dough is actually pretty easy to deal with. So just keep rolling and rolling. And pretty soon you get to the end, have the seam at the bottom. And then for the ends, what I do is I just kind of tuck them in and sort of seal them just like this. Otherwise, we don't want the filling coming out. And then I just kind of work it so that I look to see that the bottom seam is pretty much covering everything. Make sure it's a nice kind of equal log. And then I'm going to take a rimmed baking sheet with a piece of parchment, and I'm going to put the bread on here. And then you can leave it as a straight log, but then what I do a lot of times is I bend it kind of into a half circle like this. And then all you have to do is let it rise in the refrigerator overnight. So I just cover it with some plastic wrap and let it go in the refrigerator overnight. Let it rise nice and slowly. Now the next morning, I'm going to take it out of the refrigerator. It's risen very nicely, and I'm going to sit it on the counter for about a half an hour and let it kind of get to room temperature. And then I'm going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees, and I'm going to pop it in the oven for about 20 minutes. Now, after the 20 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of the oven, and you can see why it's important to bake this bread on the rimmed baking sheet, because sometimes some of the Nutella oozes out a little bit, and you wouldn't want that to spill over in your oven. And then I go ahead and I get the bread right off of the baking sheet, and it's tough enough to where you can lift it onto a little cutting board. Now, when it's time to serve the bread, you're going to want to get a serrated knife, and you're just going to cut right through. And inside there are these layers of the Nutella and the banana and the nuts. It's just fantastic. It's so easy because you can make it the night before. If you had a holiday or guests, it doesn't take much time that day to bake it off and serve it. Well, if you'd like to give this sweet breakfast bread a try, go ahead and go to our website and visit the Daily Bread show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, send me an email. I'll see you next time.